Hi, Mike. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Elisha. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And thank you for coming. It means a whole lot. Thank you so very much, man. Okay, Mike, I am so excited to have you on the show for diverse reasons. Okay, firstly, I strictly believe that knowledge is the solution to what's problem. I firmly believe that. And secondly, I am of the belief that there are some things that Mike knows that some of my audience needs to hear you say this stuff directly from your mouth, in order to experience transformation. I firmly believe that. And thirdly, even I myself, I believe that I am going to learn one or two things from your story, your experiences, your insights. I just can't wait. So, for that reason, Mike, I want us to get started with your introduction, then your journey, how the journey has been so far, the challenges that you faced, and how you overcame them. And afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Elisha. So basically, what I have done is I have discovered a revolutionary process to make complex, meaning a large number of variables, and high cost of failure decisions. And in particular, what I do now is I help women considering divorce make the right decision with confidence because this is one of the toughest decisions a human being can make, right? And obviously, I'm going to talk more about that. But we talk about knowledge, and also I know that your podcast is all about sharing and making the world a better place. And there is a saying, your wounds are your gift. And that's exactly what happened to me because I have a master's in psychology from Yale University, and I've been working in the field of personal development for 20 years, 2 decades. And in the second half of the decade, I actually went through a personal story that transformed my life. I became 50-50% partner with another person who was supposed to be the expert in marketing while I was the expert in personal development. And the first 5 years were okay. But what happened after 5 years is that we started needing to make some adjustments. And this is when things started changing. It became clearer and clearer that we had different visions, that we had different values, and the relationship grew more strained. And as a result, we started having more and more arguments. We started having differences. The tension was growing. I couldn't sleep at night. The anxiety was going through the roof. And I just didn't know what to do. And the first thing that I want to share, Elisha, is that what struck me was that it wasn't being in a bad relationship what my real issue was. The real issue was being stuck in indecision in terms of what to do regarding my relationship. Should I stay or should I go? Is it my fault? Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm, imagining things. What if I am right, but it's still the wrong thing to quit because then I will be all alone and I'll have to start from scratch. And I realized that the pain of indecision is very little understood in society. But the reality is that when you're stuck in indecision, when you have to make a decision that could cost you incredibly much if you get it wrong, it's similar to having chronic pain in your life. Some days are worse, some days are better, but overall, your quality of life is miserable. And it gets compounded with time. So after 5 years, I hit my 50th birthday and I did a life review. And when I looked at the decisions that I made in my life, I realized that like many people, like pretty much everyone, I had made a lot of mistakes. But I got the big decisions in general right, like moving to Canada, because I had lived in several different countries before. And there were a couple that I got completely wrong. And one of them was having gotten into this partnership. Now, with hindsight, I realized that even 10 years prior, I had had those gnawing feelings, those gut feelings, those little voices saying, are you really sure? And yet, because I could not justify logically those feelings, I could not explain them, I had shoved them under the rug. And they came to haunt me 10 years later. So I went back to my roots. I went back to a process that I had developed over 2 decades to make good decisions, the one that I had used when I made the good decisions. And when I applied that process, I went from anxiety, indecision, pain, and misery to absolute peace of mind. Suddenly, I knew what I had to do. It was clear. It was leaving the relationship, but it wasn't just a logical understanding. It was a decision that I had become to make, or that I had come to make with harmony, meaning my head was aligned with my heart, was aligned with my gut. I became a different person. I had peace of mind. I knew that even though it would cost me dearly because I would have to buy my associate out, I would figure things out. And I was in this total different space. And when I did that, I changed my life. And then I thought, maybe I'm onto something here. And my spouse's brother, her brother needed to make a very important decision regarding his medical career. And he had been stuck in indecision for 2 years. And he had nausea, he had anxiety. And I decided to test my improved version of my process with him. And in 2 hours, Elisha, he went from absolute anxiety to absolute clarity and peace of mind. And he told me that it had been just as if he had been stumbling in a pitch dark room, bumping on the furniture all the time. And all of a sudden, I had turned the light on. And that was a revelation to me. I said, you know what? I have put my finger on something incredible here. I need to share it with the world. And I actually changed my life mission. I pivoted. And now my life mission is to share this revolutionary process that I call the Decoding Grid with the world. And I'm starting by helping women making this incredibly tough decision, because it is one of the most difficult decisions that a human being can make.
And me, oh man, Mike, you know, I really need to, how do I put it there? This particular content is very, very valuable. I dare you, very, very important one, because the stuffs that you said within a few minutes, nah. This is actually one of the pains, that is going on in the world currently, indecision. And I'm so happy that you are doing what you're doing. And look at your spouse brother, how he got out from the anxiety just by coming in contact with someone who's got a solution. And I'm just so happy to have you here. Okay, so that's gonna lead us to the very first question. So shall we get started?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so let us begin. Yeah. So what are the common pitfalls of relying on marriage counseling to decide on divorce? The common pitfalls. Can you talk to us about that?
For sure. This is a great question. And the way I look at it is that marriage counseling, or doing marriage counseling in order to decide whether you should divorce or not, is similar to putting the cart before the horse. Now, there's a time and place for marriage counseling, but before you go to do marriage counseling, you first need to have absolute clarity in terms of the what and the why before you apply the how. So let me explain what I mean by that. Before going to marriage counseling, it's actually much better to have absolute certainty as to whether you can save your relationship, and if so, what the leverage points are. And it's only when you have that certainty that it makes sense for you to go then wholeheartedly to focus on those leverage points with the how, with the tools that marriage counseling provides to you. And here's why. A lot of people, one of their issues, I call that one of their indecision prison walls, is the fact that even though they are aware that some things are important to them in a relationship, they don't know what's more important versus less important. That's why they keep weighing the pros and cons. Well, should I stay? Yeah, these things work, but these things don't work. It's this yes, but, endless loop. So imagine going to do marriage counseling, and in a relationship, quite commonly they say that some form of compromise is necessary. And I'm not saying it isn't, but in order for you to be able to compromise, you first need to know what is essential versus optional. Because you can compromise on the optional things, but not on the essential ones. And Elisha, let me give you a thought experiment to illustrate the point. Let's imagine that you are looking for your dream house. And your dream house, you have 20 things that are important to you. And one day a friend comes and says, hey, Elisha, I have found a house for you. It has 19 out of the 20 things that you're looking for. Question for you, is that a good thing or not?
Kind of, 19 out of 20, kind of. Yeah, it
It
is.
sounds good on paper, right? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
95% of the.
yeah.
But here's the kicker. What if I tell you, by the way, the one thing missing is that this house happens to be in a different city and state from the one you want to live?
Mm.
What happens then?
I'll be having a change of mind, you know? Yeah. Mm.
Absolutely. So I use this example to say that it's not about what things are being fulfilled and what is important to you. It's not about how many things are being fulfilled in terms of what is important to you. It's which ones are being fulfilled. I
Mm.
have a saying that values are not an equal vote democracy. They are a military hierarchy, meaning it doesn't matter how many are fulfilled, it's which ones are fulfilled. And I remember I had this client, her name was Kate. She had been married for 20 years. And for the previous 5 years, she had been stuck in indecision. And she couldn't decide, should I stay? Should I go? They had children. She was torn. And when we finally came up and I guided her through the process to understand all the things that were important to her and in what order, what was essential and what was optional, she saw that 70% of the things that she was looking for in an ideal partner were fulfilled, which doesn't sound bad on paper. The problem was, just like in the dream house example, that the 30% things that were missing were part of her essential values. Her top five, the first five things that were absolutely essential for her to be happy in the relationship long term were not fulfilled. And it's only when she had that clarity that she was able to make her decision. So that's why I say if she had gone to do marriage counseling to try to decide, should I stay or should I go, without first having the clarity of what her needs were, what her values were, and how they were fulfilled in terms of essential versus optional, that's why one of the reasons why doing marriage counseling doesn't work. It's not the only one. I'll talk more about another aspect, which is it's not only a logical decision, but also an emotional decision, because a lot of women tell me, my marriage counselor told me I should divorce, but yes, but. And the reason is that making this decision cannot be made only on a logical level. You also need to include the other parts of your brain that are the gatekeepers of your decision, the emotional parts of your brain and the part of your brain in charge of survival. Does that make sense?
A whole lot. A whole lot. Oh, Mike. Okay. I've got a message to the listeners. You're listening, you're watching right now, and you're contemplating, should you take the divorce? Should you do it or not? I think, yeah, is a great solution. Mike, you just have to learn from him. Mike is just so good at what he does. Oh, man. This stuff you've been saying. Nah. Incredible. Incredible. Okay, so that's going to lead me to the second question, all right? So, can you walk us through your three-step process for gaining absolute clarity in divorce decisions?
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy. So again, let me illustrate this thing. You see, I'm holding here two Rubik cubes, and I'm describing this for the listeners who are just listening on audio. One is jumbled and one is perfectly solved with all the colors aligned. Now, question for you, Elisha. Is any piece missing in this jumbled cube in terms of the number of color stickers for the smaller cubes? No.
No.
Correct? They're all there.
Yeah.
So why I'm using this metaphor, it's because the reality is that whenever you are stuck in indecision, you are like this jumbled Rubik cube. Everything is mixed. You don't understand what decision to make, but nothing is missing. You already have all the pieces inside of you to go from the jumbled version to the solved aligned version. So what do you need to do? You need to gather all the pieces, organize them in the proper sequence, just like you do with a Rubik cube. And then you need to display that information, that organized information, properly to your brain. And I'm going to go quickly because I could talk for hours, but I know we have a limited amount of time. So step number one is gathering all the missing pieces, because a lot of people are focusing just on a few variables in terms of what's important to them. I had this client, Felicia. Her husband had been cheating on her. They decided to do marriage counseling. He was going to sex addiction support groups to try to get better. And yet she discovered that he cheated on her again. And she was devastated. And all she could think of was like, he's not faithful, but he's an amazing dad. He's not faithful, but she's an amazing dad. And this is an extreme example, but she was going just back and forth with only a very limited number of variables. And it's like trying to solve the 1,000 pieces puzzle with only just a bunch of pieces. You cannot see the image if you're missing pieces. So step number one, gather all the things, meaning all the things that are important to you in your ideal relationship, so that you can really then properly assess your relationship using everything that is relevant. Number two is, as we talked earlier, distinguish between what's important, more important versus less important, essential versus optional, and whether there are any clear deal breakers. I could talk about that for another entire episode, but I'll leave it at that for now. And the third part is how to display that information to the part of your brain that is in charge of your decision, because divorce is incredibly difficult to make. Not only it's very complex, because most people, by the way, have between 20 to 30 things that are important to them in a relationship. If that sounds a lot to you, or like it means that exactly you're not considering all the pieces, but that's the reality. They add up very quickly. You may want to have a spouse who's supportive, who's affectionate, who contributes to the house chores, who's a good role model as a father. I mean, they add up pretty quickly. So you need to gather them all, organize them. And then here's the kicker. Once you have clarity on a logical level, it's not enough to know logically what you have to do, because I have a lot of clients who have a bias towards divorce. They know they should divorce, but the consequences of getting the decision wrong are so far-reaching for them, for their kids, and on all fronts, and for so long that they are frozen in terror. Why? So this is your brain, and for your listeners, imagine your brain as a cone of ice cream with 3 scoops on top of it, and each scoop is bigger than the previous one. So if you look at this brain, the bottom part of the brain is the primal brain, the old brain, the reptilian brain. Many people have heard those terms. That part of your brain was created 500 million years ago, and it's in charge of survival, right? The second scoop on top of your brain is the emotional brain. That part was created about 150 to 200 million years ago. It's in charge of your emotions. And it's only the top part of the brain, the rational part of your brain, the neocortex, the more recent part of your brain, that was created 2 to 3 million years ago. And that is relevant because that part of the brain, the last scoop of ice cream on top of everything else, is the one in charge of logic and most of all of language, Elisha. So let me paint you this picture. If you have to make a decision where, first of all, you don't have certainty, but even if you have certainty, the consequences are so devastating and you are so scared of making the wrong decision, this part of your brain, the old part of your brain, the reptilian part of your brain, the primal brain in charge of your survival, is in charge not only of the fight or flight response, but also of the freeze response. It says, freeze. When in doubt, wait it out. Because technically speaking, as long as you don't make a decision, you can't be blamed by yourself or by your kids or by God or whatever your beliefs are, right? As long as you stay stuck, shackled in the status quo, you still have that psychological sense of safety. You cannot make it worse. It's the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Whereas if you make a decision and if you're not certain about that decision, you are facing the consequences of being wrong, especially considered that the divorce decision is one of those that it usually gets worse before it gets better. And if you're not even sure they will get better, your brain goes, hey, stay where you are. There's no reason to make a decision, because my job is to protect you. And the best thing that I can do is to protect you in the short term, because the short term increases your chances of surviving in the long term. So the reason I mentioned that those parts of the brain are older than the new part of the brain is that those two parts of your brain do not understand language, Elisha. Let me repeat that because this is huge. They do not understand words. And yet, those parts of your brain are the gatekeepers of your decision. So let's talk about the traditional solutions that people seek to find clarity. We talked about marriage counseling. And as I said, there's a time and place for that. I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying there's a time and place after you have clarity. and after you communicate clarity to this part of your brain that keeps you frozen in the status quo. So marriage counseling, therapy, journaling, talking to a lawyer, talking to friends, what do all those solutions have in common, Elisha?
They all have in common. Maybe
Remember, I just said that old brain does not understand words.
words, yeah.
What do all solutions have in common?
Okay, language.
Yes, you got
Okay,
it.
good.
So we are trying to solve a problem by using language that only a third of your brain understands. That's not even the one that is the gatekeeper of your decision. You need to communicate with the part of your brain that is keeping you stuck in the status quo, the one that is terrified and that says, no, I don't care about the logic until I'm convinced we're not doing anything. We are going to keep the status quo. Does that make sense?
A whole lot of sense.
Okay.
Oh man,
So
beautiful.
I have more information.
Okay.
How much more time do we have, Elisha? Because I'm so excited by my subject. We have another 8 to 10 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
So how then do you communicate with the part of your brain? And instead of me giving you the answer, let me have you come up with your answer. Let me have your listeners come up with your answer. Now, are you in a relationship, or do you have children, Elisha?
No, not yet.
Do you have children?
Relationship, not yet.
Okay. So let me take imagine if you had children, because this is an example that resonates with a lot of parents, right? Imagine if you had a child and you find out that child is in middle school, and you find out that they are being bullied. Would you be upset?
Yeah.
Yes, you would be upset, right? Of course. So now let me present you 4 different ways that I can present you the exact same piece of information that your child is being bullied in school, but I want you to kind of check in to see how the way you present that information affects the way you feel. So in the first scenario, a person comes and just tells you, you know what, your child is being bullied in school, and you don't even know who is bullying them, but you just find out that your child is being bullied in school. You would be upset, correct?
Sure, correct. Right.
Okay. Let me give you a second way now. A person comes and tells you, you know, your child is being bullied in school, but this time you know what the child who does the bullying looks like. Does your level of upset decrease, stay the same, or does it actually increase?
It actually increases.
It increases, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you a third scenario. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, Elisha, here are pictures of a child bullying, physically abusing your child. Wow, you felt a little upset, right?
Yeah, right.
In that scenario, you drive to school to pick up your child, and you see it with your own eyes, another child physically abusing your own child. Goes to the roof, right?
Yeah, right.
So isn't that interesting? Because it is the exact same information. Your child is being bullied in school. What is the difference? Well, the difference is your ability to visualize. At the beginning, when somebody told you, it's like, okay, but you didn't even know what the other child looked like. When they told you and you knew what the other child looked like, it was easier for you to imagine, to visualize that scene. When you saw pictures, you went, oh, and obviously when you see it live, there's nothing to imagine. You just see it with your own eyes. So all this to say that your primal brain and your emotional brain, the language they understand is visual. Visual, right? So the third step in the 3-step process I have developed with the decoding grid is, first of all, gather all the pieces of information. Number 2, organize these pieces in a way so that you know and have absolute clarity in terms of what's essential versus what's optional. And the third one is display that information in a way that is a visual way so that your emotional brain and primal brain can get on board. You know that multiple choice questions, answer sheets? The decoding grid really works a little bit like the grading sheet that you apply on the answer sheet, and you immediately see which answers are right or wrong. And this is what the decoding grid does. It enables you to assess your relationship at once with all the variables, the 20 to 30 variables, in a visual way that is color-coded, that your primal brain, your emotional brain can understand at a much deeper level. And once you have that realization, if it turns out that divorce is the wrong, that divorce is the right decision, when your brain visually understands that and sees like, you know what, now I realize, but at a deeper level, not only logical, but also emotional and visceral, that staying in the relationship is actually more, quote unquote, dangerous than divorcing, then your primal brain becomes your ally. It says, you know what, okay, now I get it. The best way to protect you is for me to help you move forward with your decision and with your life. So I call this having decision harmony, where your head is aligned with your heart, is aligned with your gut. And it's a process that happens sometimes naturally. And what I have done is I have discovered this revolutionary process to make it happen very deliberately. So those are the big 3 steps. I could talk about that for hours, but hopefully I've given enough of an overview to show that this process is based on the right research, based on the right routine in terms of how to make things happen, and it provides you the right resolve because it mimics the way your brain works, and it goes along with the way you make decisions that you feel absolutely good about and that you have peace of mind, that provide you peace of mind.
Oh man, oh man. You know, Mike, you're actually one of the great gifts that we have in the world. I mean, no, you're just so good at this stuff. And you know, you have really impacted me with so many informations. And I'm excited because I know it will be the same with the audience by the time they'll be listening to this. Thank you so very much, man. Okay, so to bring this to an end, Mike, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, how can that be possible?
So, as I mentioned, I am on a life mission to spread this process with the world. So, I actually wrote a book called Divorce Decision Decoded, and you can get the book by going to divorcedecisiondecoded.com. It's the title of the book.com. You can get the book. It's cheap. I offer you a 1-year money-back guarantee. At the time of this recording, I even give you as a bonus the audiobook version of that. And this is also the website where you can contact me if you're interested in finding out more about how you can work with me directly, how I can help you to apply those concepts directly to your specific situation. But I would say that one thing is really the most important thing, because at the end of the day, my mission is to help people, whether through the book, whether by working with me, doesn't matter. The most important thing is that your life gets transformed. And now I hope I have given you hope, and you will get the relief once you get to apply those tools. So get the book. It's cheap. You have no risk. What I'm saying is that the most important thing is for you to keep the momentum. If you have been considering divorce, if you've been stuck in indecision, weighing the pros and cons and not knowing, and anything that I have shared with you today has resonated, take action now. Why? Because otherwise, your primal brain will try to suck you back in your status quo. You'll go back to your busy daily life and so on. So if anything resonated with you, go to divorcedecisiondecoded.com. And this is where you can find somebody that can help you take the next step and hopefully transform your life. And if even one person today changes their lives thanks to that, I'll be a happy man.
Man, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so very much, Mike. So that's going to be the end of the show. Thank you for coming. And, thank you for blessing us with this amazing insight. Incredible stuff. I love it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me and for helping me with my life mission, Elash. I really appreciate it.